I came home from college for spring break and found my home empty, with a for sale sign out front. My parents had moved without telling me. My belongings were in garbage bags on the porch. Deal with it, my dad said. I cut all ties with my family. 1 year and 247 frantic calls later. What do you mean you don't have the keys? The house is empty. That can't be right, I said, my knuckles white as I gripped my phone. The neighbor across the street was staring at me from his porch, watching me pace back and forth in front of what used to be my home. My name is Sophia Martinez, and I had just driven 4 hours from my university to Bakersfield for spring break, only to find my childhood home with a for sale sign hammered into the front lawn. The windows were bare, no curtains, no furniture visible inside. 3 black garbage bags sat on the porch like unwanted guests. When I peered inside one, I saw my clothes, my books, fragments of the life I'd left behind when I went to college. Your father said you should have called first, my uncle Miguel said, his voice hesitant on the other end of the line. They moved last week. Didn't they tell you? No, I said, the word barely making it past the lump in my throat. They didn't tell me anything. I hung up and called my father. Each ring felt like an eternity. Hello. His voice was flat, emotionless. Dad, the house is empty. There are garbage bags with my stuff on the porch. What's going on? A pause. Then, we moved. You're an adult now. Deal with it. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, stunned. I called back straight to voicemail. I tried my mother's phone, same. My younger brother's phone, no answer. Just like that, I had been erased from their lives. No warning, no goodbye, not even the courtesy of a forwarding address. I stood there, watching the sunset cast long shadows across what used to be my front yard. The maple tree my father and I had planted when I was 8 still stood tall, its branches reaching toward a house that no longer belonged to us. I had sent part of my scholarship money home every month. I had maintained a 3.9 GPA in pre-law while working part-time. I had been the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never caused trouble, and this was my reward. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I picked up those garbage bags and loaded them into my car. I checked into a motel for the night, laying out my salvaged possessions on the scratchy bedspread, a few textbooks, winter clothes I'd left behind, a broken picture frame with a photo of my family at the beach 3 summers ago. Everyone smiling, everyone a liar. That night, I made a decision. If they wanted to erase me, I would return the favor. I would cut all ties, and I would build something they could never take away from me. I grew up believing family meant unconditional support. My parents had immigrated from Mexico before I was born, and family first was practically our household religion. My father, Carlos, worked double shifts at the manufacturing plant, and my mother, Maria, cleaned houses. They reminded us daily of their sacrifices. We came here with nothing, so you could have everything. My father would say over dinner, "Education is your ticket." I took those words seriously. While other kids went to parties, I studied. When my high school friends got summer jobs at the mall, I interned at the local courthouse. My acceptance to university on a pre-law scholarship was supposed to be the first return on their investment. My younger brother, Daniel, was different. He struggled in school, preferred video games to books, and had been caught shoplifting twice. Yet my parents never threatened to kick him out. They defended him, supported him, forgave him. He's finding his way, they'd say. Maybe that's why their abandonment blindsided me, the responsible daughter discarded, while the troubled son remained under their wing. That night in the motel, I called Professor Thompson, my constitutional law instructor who had become something of a mentor. They just left, she asked, disbelief evident in her voice. Yes, I'm not sure what to do next. I can't exactly go back to the dorms during break. And my voice cracked, the emotion finally breaking through. Listen to me, Sophia. Come stay with me until the dorms reopen. We'll figure this out together. Professor Thompson lived alone in a Victorian house filled with books and 2 elderly cats. She gave me her guest room and a key. No time limit, she said. Focus on your studies. That's spring break. Instead of relaxing, I threw myself into research. Professor Thompson had connected me with a summer legal internship at Riverton Law Partners, specializing in housing discrimination cases. The irony wasn't lost on me. Channel it. Professor Thompson advised over tea one evening. The best advocacy comes from personal experience. I nodded, thinking about the family photos I'd found crumpled at the bottom of one garbage bag, my quinceanera, my high school graduation, all the milestones my parents had celebrated, only to discard the evidence like trash. That night, I blocked their numbers, all of them, my father, mother, brother, even aunts and uncles who might enable their behavior. If anyone asked about my family, I simply said, "We're not in touch." No dramatic story, no plea for sympathy. I was rebuilding from scratch, and sentimentality had no place in the foundation. The summer internship at Riverton Law Partners changed everything. What started as basic research and coffee runs quickly evolved when my supervisor, attorney Laura Bennett, discovered my knack for connecting with clients. "You have something rare, Sophia," she told me after I helped calm a young mother facing eviction. "You actually listen." I was assigned to assist with intake interviews, meeting families being pushed out of affordable housing by developers, elderly tenants facing illegal rent increases, students dealing with predatory landlords. Their stories resonated with me in ways I couldn't articulate. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, interviewing 3 families from the same apartment complex, who were all served simultaneous eviction notices, I stayed late, organizing case notes. Laura found me there at 9:00 p.m. surrounded by papers. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "These families have nowhere to go," I said. "The developer's offering them 2 weeks in a motel as compensation for breaking their leases early." Laura sighed. "Unfortunately, that's often more than the law requires. But it's not right," I insisted. 2 weeks isn't enough time to find new housing, especially with security deposits and first month's rent. "These people will end up homeless. The system is broken," Laura agreed. "So, what are you going to do about it?" That question lingered with me for days. What could I, a second-year pre-law student with an internship, possibly do? The answer came unexpectedly during a mandatory university financial aid seminar. The presenter mentioned that students could apply for social innovation grants, seed money for projects addressing community needs. The application deadline was just 2 weeks away. I stayed up 3 nights straight, drafting a proposal for a housing advocacy program, specifically for students and low-income families. I called it Safe Space Initiative. Laura helped me refine the legal aspects, and Professor Thompson reviewed the final application. While waiting to hear back about the grant, I received the first of many calls from my parents. It came 6 months after they'd abandoned me. A voicemail from my father, "Sophia, your mother is worried about you. Call us." No apology, no explanation, just an expectation that I would respond to their summons like an obedient daughter. I didn't call back. 3 days later, another voicemail. "This silent treatment is childish. Sophia, we're your family." I saved the message but didn't respond. The calls increased in frequency, sometimes my father, sometimes my mother, occasionally my brother. Their tones ranged from demanding to pleading. None acknowledged what they had done. When the university awarded me the Social Innovation Grant, $25,000 to launch Safe Space Initiative, I didn't share the news with them. When I was offered a paid position at Riverton to continue my work through the academic year, I celebrated with Professor Thompson and Laura instead. My new family was forming around me, people who supported me not out of obligation but out of genuine respect and care. By January, the Safe Space Initiative had assisted 23 students fighting wrongful evictions. We operated out of a converted storage room at Riverton Law Partners, with 2 volunteer paralegals and a rotating schedule of law students earning clinical hours. Most days, I rushed from classes to the office, spending evenings reviewing cases and refining our approach. The work was exhausting but fulfilling. Each family that maintained housing, each student who avoided homelessness, felt like a personal victory. I was building something meaningful from the wreckage of my own displacement. My parents, meanwhile, had increased their campaign to reconnect. The calls came with alarming frequency, sometimes multiple times per day. When I continued ignoring them, they enlisted relatives. "Your mother cries every night," my Aunt Lucia texted. "Whatever they did, can't you forgive them?" I didn't respond to these messages either. Forgiveness required acknowledgement, and they had yet to admit any wrongdoing. One Tuesday afternoon in February, I was counseling a sophomore named Devon who had returned from winter break to find his landlord had rented his room to someone else despite his paid-up lease. As we discussed his options, the office phone rang. Safe Space Initiative. "This is Sophia," I answered, gesturing apologetically to Devon. "Sophia, is that you?" It was my mother's voice. My stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "It's on your website," she said. "Why haven't you returned our calls?" "We've been worried sick." Devon shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I covered the mouthpiece. "I'm sorry. I need to handle this. Would you mind waiting outside for a moment?" After he left, I uncovered the phone. "This is my workplace. Please don't call here again." "We're your parents," my mother said, her voice breaking. "We have the right. You lost that right." I interrupted. "When you put my belongings in garbage bags and sold our house without telling me." "I'm not doing this now. Your father made a mistake," she pleaded. "We had financial troubles. The house was being foreclosed on. We were embarrassed. For a moment, I felt a crack in my resolve. Financial troubles. Foreclosure. They had never mentioned money problems. "If you were in trouble, you could have told me," I said, my voice softer. "I would have helped. I was already sending money home." "Your father wouldn't allow it," she said. "His pride, you know how he is." I did know. My father's pride was a force of nature, shaping our family dynamics since childhood. But pride didn't justify what they'd done. "I need to get back to work," I said firmly. "Please respect my boundaries." I hung up before she could respond, hands trembling slightly as I placed the receiver down. The brief conversation had unearthed feelings I thought I'd successfully buried. Anger, certainly, but also a lingering sense of responsibility toward them. Later that evening, Laura found me still at my desk, staring at Safe Space's call log. "Everything okay? You seem distracted," she said, perching on the edge of my desk. I hesitated, then told her about the call. "Part of me wants to believe they had a good reason," I admitted, "that it wasn't just cruelty." Laura considered this. "People rarely act from pure cruelty, Sophia, but reasons and excuses aren't the same thing. Whatever financial troubles they had, they chose to handle it by abandoning you without warning." She was right. And yet, my mother's explanation had planted a seed of doubt. What if there was more to the story? What if they had been desperate? The next day, against my better judgment, I did something I'd resisted for months. I searched for my family online. What I found shattered any emerging sympathy. A cheerful Facebook post from my mother, dated just 3 weeks after they'd moved, showed her, my father, and Daniel smiling in front of a new house. The caption read, "New beginnings, so blessed." There had been no financial crisis. There had been no foreclosure. There had just been a decision to leave me behind. The unanswered calls accumulated like falling snow, 20.50 tar 200. My parents' voicemails evolved from demanding to pleading, occasionally peppered with information about their new lives, as if we were having a normal, ongoing conversation instead of a one-sided bombardment. Daniel got accepted to community college. My mother reported in late March, "He's studying computer programming. You always said he was smart." The neighbors brought us tamales. My father announced in April, "Not as good as your mother's, but they're trying to be welcoming." These casual updates infuriated me more than their earlier demands. They were living their lives, forming new community connections, celebrating milestones, all while I was still processing the trauma of their abandonment. Meanwhile, Safe Space Initiative was gaining attention. A local news station ran a feature on our work, interviewing several students we'd helped. The university newspaper followed with a profile highlighting my innovative approach to housing justice. These small spotlights increased our caseload dramatically. "We need more resources," I told Laura one afternoon, gesturing at our overflowing intake folders. "More volunteers, more space, more funding." "I might have a solution," she replied. "The Watkins Foundation is accepting proposals for their annual social justice grants. The award is substantial enough to hire staff and rent proper offices." The application process was grueling. I spent weeks drafting and redrafting our proposal, gathering testimonials from clients, and compiling data on housing insecurity among students. The final document ran to 47 pages, detailing Safe Space's mission, and measurable impacts. 2 days after submission, I received a call from an unfamiliar number with my hometown's area code. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Sophia, it's Miss S. Lopez from next door, our former neighbor. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I found the house empty. I hope it's okay that I called. Your brother gave me your number. He said you might not answer if you saw their names on caller ID." My defenses rose immediately. "If this is about reconnecting with my parents, no," she interrupted. "Well, not directly. It's about the house, your old house. Someone broke in last night. The police think they were looking for valuables, but of course, the place is empty. Your father asked me to check if perhaps you had come back for something. He didn't want to report a break-in if it was just you." I nearly laughed at the absurdity. I haven't been back since that day. Mrs. Lopez. Besides, I don't have keys anymore. That's what I told him. She sighed. "But there's something else. The intruder left something behind an envelope with your name on it. The police gave it to me since I'm watching the property." My heart skipped. "What does it say?" "I haven't opened it," she said. "It's addressed to you, but it looks official. There's a law firm's name on it. Official mail at my old address. No one should be sending me legal documents there. I'd updated my address months ago. Can you open it?" I asked. "Just tell me what it says." I heard paper tearing, then silence. "Miss S. Lopez, it's about your grandmother's estate," she said finally. "Your maternal grandmother in Mexico." My grandmother had died when I was 13. I barely remembered her. "What about her estate?" "It says you've inherited property in Oaxaca," Miss S. Lopez read slowly. "And there's a bank statement. Sophia, it shows a balance of over $400.0 so." My mind reeled. That can't be right. My grandmother lived simply. She didn't have that kind of money. The letter says the property was developed after her death resort, condominiums. Your portion is the proceeds from the sale of 2 units. I grabbed a pen, scribbling as Miss S. Lopez dictated the law firm's contact information. My hand shook as I processed the implications. "Does it say when this inheritance became available?" Miss S. Lopez paused, paper shuffling. "Yes. It was finalized last March. Last March, 1 month before my parents abandoned me. The timing couldn't be coincidence. They had known about my inheritance, and they had left me behind anyway." The Watkins Foundation called while I was still processing the inheritance bombshell. We'd been selected as finalists for their grant and needed to prepare a presentation for their board. Under normal circumstances, this would have been cause for celebration. The foundation's backing would transform Safe Space from a scrappy student initiative into a legitimate nonprofit. But I was distracted, my thoughts circling back to my grandmother's unexpected legacy. After consulting with Laura, I contacted the Mexican law firm handling truncated exceeds character limit for 1 response. I can provide the rest if needed.